those two things, the anxiety-driven world and then the fear-based, reactive component of the traditional approach oftentimes. And then we care about them so much. I mean, it's just like this perfect little storm. Welcome back to the Crunchy Carnivore podcast, where we are unapologetically all natural. I am Melissa Weidenhammer, natural rearing breeder, certified canine nutritionist, and I am here with holistic veterinarian, Dr. Jessica Levy. We have a very interesting topic today that actually morphed a little bit. We originally had a different spin on this episode, but the more we discussed in preparing, we kind of went from, originally it was going to be the top 3 things that dog owners miss even in the holistic world. But the more we really fleshed it out, it's kind of one big thing. So we're going to talk about that today, what that is, and explore maybe why this is an issue and maybe what we can do to start changing it a little bit if we're kind of struggling with this, to do better by ourselves and then therefore our dogs. When we look at the holistic approach to taking care of our animals, I think a lot of people mistakenly think, and we've talked about this, that it's just making some natural choices. It's swapping out a natural food for a processed food, or vice versa, right?
Right.
Or natural flea and tick for the toxic flea and tick. But really what we're trying to bring about as an understanding is that it really is all of the facets of your dog's life and the way that you interact with your dog that make the holistic approach holistic. And a big part of that is the mental and emotional component of this. And so really the big thing that we really ended up with is we're stressing our dogs sick. We're stressing our dogs sick. And, that looks like a lot of different things, and we've all done it. And I think it's important to talk about because it's just kind of this state of being that a lot of us walk around with, and we're doing a lot more damage than we realize we are doing. And so we want to talk about why we think that is the case and why it's such a hard thing to kind of become aware of and then change how we approach.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the kind of thing that we're going to work through in this podcast episode, because we don't have here's the reasons why this is happening, pat, 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 and here are the solutions, pat, pat, pat.
Right.
Because it's kind of complex and it's all intertwined. So it has to do with the state of human emotionality today. It has to do with why we get dogs, our relationship with our dogs, how that evolves. And then, of course, the veterinary world is involved.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot going on there. I think in the past, maybe there was more of a tendency to have a farm dog or a family dog, and maybe the dog wasn't the center focus all the time. And so there was a different attitude towards the dog and its health. And yet for a lot of people, I don't have kids, but for a lot of people, the dogs end up kind of taking center stage as the focus of all the human attention. And if you look at some breeds that are kind of designed to have a little more human features, right? There's a reason why half of the Frenchies are named Winston. And so, there's a reason why people love Cavaliers, and people with Cavaliers never have just one.
It's those big eyes.
Yes, and kind of the round face and the slightly smushy nose.
I'm a bulldog lover, so I'm guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty.
And so, but then we also physically and emotionally kind of try to turn the dog into a mini-me sometimes. So I've seen this, for example, with supplements, when I was wondering at some point, how come there's flaxseed in all the dog supplements all of a sudden? And it's because the human natural health world had decided that flaxseed was great for us. Therefore, it must be good for our dogs because they're just like us. Except they're not.
They are not.
Right? They're independent, sentient beings that have different drives, different desires from us. We cannot imagine how they think. They live in a world of scent. They don't see colors the way that we do. They don't perceive things in the environment the way that we do. They're maybe more tuned into hearing and scent, obviously, versus, we're primarily visual. And then, they are they're their own beings, and I think it's important for us to allow them that space and to allow them to be themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate in that, when I first got into breeding Levitts, I just had one come in, and I'd only ever had a dog, pets before, and whatever. And it was only ever one or two dogs. But I remember bringing her in, and I wanted to gush all over this dog, and I wanted to, kind of make her my little baby and stuff like that. And, the breed that I chose was a lot more intense than I realized. Okay. I'll be honest. I did not realize.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I did. Well, yeah, we both have done that.
Not a beginner's choice.
But in that, I really had a wake-up call when I started to have more of them. They're not it's not like having 4 children.
Right.
They're a completely different species. I could not treat them like little people. And I learned the hard way in a lot of ways that is not the case. I had to accept and really acknowledge these are dogs. They're not people. And I think we love them so much, and we get dogs because we want that relationship, that connection, and it looks different for different people. Sometimes it's through dog sport and competing. I mean, there's a huge bond that can form there, or certain types of training, things like that. Some people do really just want a family companion that their children can love and things like that. But I think we do a massive disservice and set our dogs and ourselves up for failure in a lot of ways when we try and put them too much in a human box with human, attributes and things like that.
Right. And yet you can see how some of that happens, because if the dog is limping or has a runny nose or is shaking its head or itchy, we worry that they can't tell us what's wrong with them. And so how are we going to know if they feel terrible and we should be doing something about it? And so that's where, we can't really peer into their minds. And so that's why I think, particularly with first-time dog owners, when I read through the medical records, I mean, some of these folks are at the vet once a week.
Oh my goodness.
Because there's concern about everything, right? They don't, and certainly, I mean, people are probably like that with their first baby too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my gosh, he coughed, or
right.
He cried.
Much more jumpy with the first one, for sure.
Yeah, and so people are like that with dogs too. But then, of course, just like in humans, the medical profession tends to medicate. And then you end up with compounding problems. And I think too, that approach also doesn't necessarily address the underlying anxiety that's driving that. So it's, like you were saying, people get dogs for different reasons. And probably we're all a little bit different from each other. And people might love their dogs more or less. But I think as you acclimate to having dogs, you learn over time, okay, I can wait and see what this looks like tomorrow. Or I'll look at you tomorrow and see if your eye still looks red or something like that. But there's much more anxiety just inherent in when you have to speak for somebody else, you have to act for somebody else, you have to do something for somebody else who can't talk to you.
And you are their nurturer and you are their caretaker. And I think there is something about the relationship specifically from person to animal. It gets very muddy in we get very emotional. We care so much about them. And when you're in a heightened state of emotion or you get really worried, you can't think very clearly. And
it's hard to make good decisions.
And so, the other thing that we were really just trying to just kind of take a step back and analyze is, why is it that when it comes to our dogs, if something tiny goes wrong, for the most part, we're jumping. Oh my gosh, what's wrong? I got to get him to the vet. It's like, and I think, as we were discussing it, really, there's kind of the obvious part is we live in a very anxiety-filled world. It is, just the way things are presented to us, how fast they come at us, the way they come at us. And the constant, like, you can constantly see what's going on in the world all over the place. And depending on how your algorithm is set on Instagram, we are just, and it's hard to put it down. So then we're doing that all the time. And I just, I feel like the heightened anxiety level in the world at large, and then you pair that with what the majority of people are taught to do, which is the conventional approach, and going to a traditional veterinary office, there is a tremendous amount of what you are supposed to do to be a good dog owner that is very fear-driven. Like there's a lot of fear pushed, a lot of pressure. And if you're not readily like, oh, yep, whatever you say, the guilt and the shame and, quite frankly, the bullying that people experience. The stuff that you and I have heard from when people go into a traditional vet's office, and we're not saying all traditional vets are bad. That's not what we're saying. But this is not an uncommon experience. We hear it all the time. It is, I cannot believe some of the things that people leave in tears with the way that they're treated and what they're said. And so that's who you're supposed to go for help for your dog. Oh my gosh, no wonder we're all, unless you really figure out how to sever from that. And I think you used the term break free from the yoke is what you said of the fear that is that approach. Like you have to do a lot to break from that. And then, once you do, you can start to kind of like your head clears literally being like, oh my gosh, you know?
Like you have to detox from
you
that.
You kind of do.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, those two are two big factors and that would explain. And then you pair, those two things, the anxiety driven world, and then the fear-based reactive, component of the traditional approach often times. And then we care about them so much. It's just like this perfect little storm.
Well, and think about the internet, right? Just try Googling, my dog is drinking more than he used to, or my dog has a red spot on his belly. What could it be? Boy, that will send you straight into the veterinary clinic every time you look something up.
Yeah.
And even if you go to like a Facebook group and say, my dog has XYZ, somebody, a human, a bot, who the heck knows?
Yeah.
Somebody is going to answer you and say, well, my dog had that too. And it turned out to be this really bad thing.
Right.
So there's, a lot of this is like loss of some kind of generational common sense. Like if bacteria are going to kill us all, unless we give our dogs an antibiotic in case they might get an infection, or unless we give our dogs heartworm preventive every month, or unless we brush our dog's teeth, or give them medications for their perceived anxiety. Like, how the heck did dogs live so long? Right? It's kind of like Del Bigtree says, if measles was such a deadly disease, how come you and I were born? Because our grandparents survived.
Right.
I mean, for you, great grandparents, but
well,
my grandparents. And so, like, if these contagious diseases were so deadly, how are any of us here?
Right.
Since, again, vaccines are a recent invention. So I think there's a lot going on here. And it's difficult for people to clear their mind. And I think there's also, it's hard for me to understand at this point, because I've been a veterinarian for so darn long. But for people to, like, this is one of the things that we want to provide, I think, is for people to have kind of a calm space that you can go to and get real answers. The other thing too is that people think that Google is like an encyclopedia and it will give you the information that you're looking for, and you forget it is a giant sales platform.
Right.
And the purpose of Google is to sell you things. So I think that is a big challenge, but that, like, finding that calm would be a big step towards getting out of this mess. And then the guilt is such a huge piece.
Yep.
So, I get asked by people all the time, my dog has blah, blah, blah. Did I cause this? Is this because of something that I've done? And I mean, in part, yeah. But I think, like, we all did this. Like, we've all been through this on our journey.
Right.
We all had the dog that we vaccinated regularly and fed dry food. And the first dog that I had that got me through vet school had terrible allergies. I gave him antibiotics and steroids all the time. He was fat because I fed him kibble. I tested his thyroid twice a week. He was not hypothyroid ever. Any lump and bump, I whisked him into surgery, and we took every single one of those off. And he did not live very long, right? He died at 11. And that was really, I was so bonded with this dog. When I was in vet school, I used to joke to my classmates that I was going to marry Bruiser. And their response was always, you kind of already have. And so, but, like, because we had to learn, I think of it kind of like on the backs of our previous dogs. We learned what not to do. We learned how to do things differently. We still have not always been able to escape cancer, allergies, Cushing's. Like, these things have still happened to us because we're not living on our 1,000,000-acre organic holistic haven. We are still a part of the regular world. Right. I will say, like, all the dogs that I have in my house and my cats, they were all previously vaccinated. So, but that's why a lot of people are looking for raw-fed, unvaccinated, healthy puppies and kittens in order to avoid making even that mistake. But for whatever reason, I got the dogs I got. And so am I going to pay the price for that? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. At some point.
Damage is already done.
Yep. Bill's going to come due.
Yep.
And so that's why when people say to me, oh my gosh, did I do anything that caused this? Or if you go to your conventional vet and you're like, hey, my dog just got diagnosed with blah. Did any of the stuff I've done over the years, is that any part of that? Of course, their immediate thought is to say no. Because as veterinarians, we don't like to think that anything we do would hurt our patients, right? And so there's this perception that, no, vaccines are benign, drugs are benign, heartworm prevention is benign, kibble is benign, and yet that's not true. So I think part of it is, like, to establish this community where, like, we've all been there. My thought when people ask me what I think they should do about vaccines, my answer is always, now's your time to quit while you're ahead. Why don't you stop while your dog is still alive? That's a great time to stop. And I literally mean stop vaccinating. Yeah. Because that is a huge thing that has an impact on our dog's health.
Yeah. So when we think about, what is obviously nobody wants to feel anxious. Nobody wants to feel, that's just terrible.
Or guilty.
Yeah. We all do it. But, like, ultimately, why are we bringing this up? Because there's harm that we bring to our animals just with our state of mind. It influences how we interact with them. It influences the choices that we make. I've even been guilty. I'm a lot calmer, obviously, than I used to be. I follow the process that we're going to talk about, and you've been a huge part in helping me to find that relaxed place where I can be a little bit more, reasonable and, kind of figure stuff out. But in thinking about these things, they pick up on whatever we're putting out. And so that causes our heightened cortisol, which is what happens when we're stressed to the nines, affects their cortisol level, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that cortisol is an immunosuppressant. It literally is one of the biggest factors in causing illness mm-hmm. in people and in animals. And so not only that, but then also if we're in such a heightened state and we can't think clearly enough, or, we're going into a traditional vet office and they're just telling us what to do. We're like, okay, just fix it. We're not stopping to use reasoning and think. We can also, even in the holistic space, be like, okay, I'm going to try this thing to fix this problem. And, we'll see if that does anything. And we watch for an hour. Mm-hmm. And we're like, they're not getting into bed. They're still throwing up.
Yeah, that didn't work.
And so now, and then we kind of freak out. And what is that doing? It's not only putting stress on the animal, which is going to suppress the immune system and worsen whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. It also affects our ability to be able to problem solve. Like, mm-hmm. you need to stop and think and give it some time, right? Unless mm-hmm. there's critical situations.
Obviously, if something's right? bleeding, that's a different
There's critical situations, and you do kind of need to learn what that means. But for the most part, there's so many things where if we just stop and try something and allow the body to do what it was designed to do, like we'll probably actually get a result. Mm-hmm. But we're so quick to, didn't work because we're freaking out.
Right. And it's also kind of, the whole how modern society is kind of thing where for every ill, there's a pill.
Yeah.
And so something that I get asked a lot is, my dog is anxious. What can I give them that would be natural? Well, the best answer to that is, who can you be so that you have a better effect on the dog, right? Because what are our dogs looking for? They're looking for hierarchy. They're looking for leadership. Mm-hmm. They're looking for calm. They're looking for direction. And so they're looking for discipline in some cases, right? There have to be some rules. You can't let your dogs run the house. And so treating dogs like dogs is a big part of it. They're not little humans. Mm-hmm. They're very different from we are. We cannot imagine what it's like to be a dog. They live in a world of scent. They live in a world of hearing. So people say to me all the time, my dog barks randomly sometimes. Remember dog whistles? They hear things that we can't hear. Mm-hmm. Their hearing is like 1,000,000 times better than ours. Their sense of smell is 50 gazillion times better than ours. Mm-hmm. And, they can smell the past, the present, and the future, right there. And yet they don't have as good eyesight as we do. So we wonder all the time, how does my dog not see the brown and white spotted fawn in the green grass? Because it's not moving, right? Their eyes are drawn to movement. That is their instinct. And anything we ask dogs to do, and this is where sometimes familiarizing yourself with your dog, your breed of dog, if you've done DNA analysis, whatever the top thing is, comes in handy, because then it'll help you understand their drivers. Mm. You cannot be surprised when you're throwing your kid's birthday party and your border collie is trying to herd the children. Right? And so everything that we ask dogs to do is based on drive, which is instinct. All dogs, all breeds of dogs were bred for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And we just funnel that drive in different directions. So the golden retriever was bred as a hunting dog. Its drive to follow instructions, listen to its master, be super aware of its environment. want to go get the bird, want to go do the thing. That's what it was bred for. Whereas Border Collie was bred for something different. Bulldogs were bred for something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's worth thinking about. Maybe, I mean, you choose the dog you choose, right? I certainly have done that without thinking like, oh, do I really want to? I tend to dive in head first in that regard. But it would help us understand our dogs instead of trying to make them into what we want. So when I ask people, I hear you asking about your dog's anxiety, what are you seeing that makes you interpret the dog's actions as anxiety? Like basically, what do you see in your dog that makes you think, oh, he's anxious?
Mm-hmm.
Barking at random noises, barking at people who come to the door, barking as bicycles go down the street. It's like, yeah, that is what all dogs do,
Mm-hmm.
right? If a dog in the pack notices something, they're going to tell everybody else in the pack.
Mm-hmm.
And so those to me are like reasonable dog activities. So, I mean, there's a lot of that as well as just like understanding dog behavior. So, I had a lot of dogs early on. I was running a humane society. I had 7 dogs of my own, and I fostered dogs on top of it. So I had 10 or 12 dogs in my house all the time. And I thought I knew quite a bit about dog behavior. And then at some point, I brought home a little terrier from animal control who blew my mind. So the first day I had her, she bit 3 people, including my husband. And then when I brought her home, I had 6 dogs at that point. She was number 7. So I had 3 neutered male dogs who were not part of this. So she was my 4th spayed female dog. Mm-hmm. And so when she walked into my household, I already knew, just from observing my dogs, I already knew who the boss was. And these ideas of dominance and aggression and submission, these are human terms, and they don't really apply to dogs the way that we think they do. Mm-hmm. And so I already knew who the queen dog was. And basically nobody messed with her. She was the tiniest dog I had, very calm. She would let other dogs eat out of her bowl. Oh. She was not always the first out the door, but she never snarled, growled, lifted her voice because she didn't have to. Mm. Every other dog walked into the house was like, oh, I see you're in charge here. And this is separate from being part of the human pack, right? Mm. This was amongst the dogs. Mm-hmm. And so Ariel walked into the house. My Australian Shepherd, Alice, immediately stepped down and said, I want no part of this. Mm. Tootsie, who was the number 2 dog, was like, no, I'm number 2. And Ariel said to her, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to be number 2. And watching 2 little tiny dogs fight to the death, wow, was pretty interesting. Wow. And so I started reading about dog behavior. Like one thing that really helped me was this book by Brenda Aloff called Canine Body Language. That was a phenomenal education. I became way more observant about my dogs. I read Calming Signals by Turid Rugas, who's a Norwegian dog trainer. And I know I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, but I don't speak Norwegian. And so those kinds of things really helped me. And I spent a lot of time just observing my dogs. And that was what led me to understand pack order, how to eliminate their disputes before they happened, how to head things off at the pass. But it requires, like, you have to be kind of quiet and paying attention. And so there's a lot of things that we can learn about our dogs. So even while we're giving labels, this dog's in pain, this dog is anxious, this dog has this dog has this, but what are they doing? And that also kind of helps us understand where we can intervene gently and also how not to exacerbate things, right? If I had tried to instill my pack order on the dogs, it would have created complete havoc. And then, like, I think part of it too is not imposing our own emotional state on her dogs. So like you were saying before, some people have dogs who some dogs are wonderful and they instinctively know that you're having a hard day, and they'll lick your hand or lie on the couch with you all day. And I used to scream at my dogs, "You're supposed to be lowering my blood pressure." But also there's like this recognition that they were separate from me. I love them. I adore my dogs. They're all members of my family. And yet they're not humans. They're not little mini me's. So when people say to me, the dog peed by the door after I left for work, and so I know he's mad at me. Probably not. So we have to kind of understand dogs as dogs in that context. I think too, when you have children who are actually siblings, sometimes they hate each other too. And when you have dogs, like the 5 dogs I have now, they're not related to each other. None of them are the same breed. They have different facial expressions. They're all from different backgrounds. And I'm kind of doing this real world experiment. Like, you're all going to live in this house together and get along. And, maybe I'll film you or write a book about you. Oh, by the way, there's 2 cats too, who are also not related to each other. Like, we're already putting them in a stressful situation. So,
yeah.
At least your dogs were somewhat related to each other. Right? But you also learn stuff about pack order and individual personality, right? I mean, how many people have I met who got a fill in the blank because their neighbor had one and it was a super awesome dog? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, the reason that this is so important to address is because it really can set the stage for everything else. And I think when we can take a step back and realize maybe what we bring to the table emotionally, whether it's our own emotional needs that we put on the dog, right? Like that happens a lot, and we all do it in different capacities, even though if we try not to. But when we realize what we're bringing to the table and the fact that they are a separate species from us, but they are definitely in tune to what we are doing. They're incredibly aware of our tone, our body language, the energy we bring into a room. And that absolutely can affect their well-being and their health. And so, not only that, but it affects your choices, like we talked about before. So, when we talk about doing more of a holistic approach, there's this place that really is helpful to find where you start to realize that there are a lot of things that you can do by educating yourself and having certain things on hand. From a natural medicinal standpoint, you can actually deal with a lot of problems. I've dealt with a lot of issues with learning different modalities and kind of having those resources at hand. So I think there's this idea that if the vet didn't tell me to do something, I don't know what to do. Right. And I think that's a huge part of the problem, because you feel helpless. You feel like you don't know what to do, and you want to stop their suffering. You want to, fix the problem, like whatever. There are, that's what we're trying to teach people, is that, there are a lot of things that if you just take a step back and observe what's going on as the symptoms, you can address those symptoms before you really need to have any other type of intervention. Homeopathy is such a beautiful system of medicine that really has proven that in your practice, and then through what you have taught me in my own breeding program, and then with my own dogs. It is as simple as getting some good books, understanding a philosophy, observing your dog's symptoms, having a remedy kit on hand, and there's different sizes of ones you can get with more remedies in them. I think that's really one of the things that I'm the most excited to introduce at some point, is to really sit with you and for us to figure out, okay, what is this toolbox of remedies that we would encourage a puppy owner to have for the first year, right? Or, if you have a senior dog, what are those common things that we want to make sure we have remedies on hand? Because when you're dealing with things more naturally, you don't want to wait till there's a problem to then try and go find what you need, right? Like we want to have things on hand. That is like, I can't tell you how many times, like I had that happen like a few times. And then I was like, I need a remedy kit. Like, I'm so sick of it. Because if I would have had the remedy on hand, that early intervention, it's like, I'm seeing this right now. I know to do this first. And now I'm going to, what remedy can I go to for what my dogs are having symptoms for? And that's just homeopathy. I mean, there's a lot of different natural modalities, but I think we want to empower dog owners to realize there is this beautifully designed, intricate collection of systems in place in your animal when they're born. It's constantly working to keep balance. It's constantly working to, repair itself if it needs to repair itself. And so we've been taught that, if a symptom shows up or sickness or disease, that we need to stop it. You need to stop it.
Right.
And the reality is the body is not broken. The body is showing you something. There is an imbalance. What's the root of the imbalance? Where it's not a problem to stop or fix. Yes, it is a problem to solve. Okay. But there is a way that you can do it where you're coming alongside the dog's system with respect for there is a natural design constantly trying to keep itself in balance, thriving, surviving, right?
Right. So it's like working with the wisdom of the body instead of saying, get out of the way, body. We're going to handle this with drugs. So
I was just reading Flat Earth Medicine.
Yeah.
By Dr. Dooley this week. And that's the best book on homeopathy I've ever read. But one of the terms that he used it was just so profound. And I actually included it in our quick start guide because I just feel like it's such a powerful statement. When he went back to school, he was a naturopathic doctor, went back to school to conventional medicine because he thought, is there something I'm missing? I want to make sure there's nothing I'm missing. And when he went back, he really found that there was not much he was missing. And unfortunately, the way that conventional medicine looks at the body, whether it's animals or people, is as if it's a biochemical machine that's broken. That's how they look at illness and disease. It's a biochemical machine that's broken. And I just thought, that was such a profound and very real statement. And, there is a whole system in homeopathy, they call it the vital force, right? But there's a whole system in play here, and everything works off of everything else and everything works together. And when you start to recognize that's the way of it, and that it's not just this machine that either works well or it's broken, you start to approach it very differently.
Yeah. Because your body does everything that it does for a reason. Most of the times the reason is detox. But I think too, like coming back to the emotional part of it, because part of what affects success with natural medicine, I mean, obviously I treat a lot of patients who have severe pathology. This is not a magic wand. But part of what affects it is people, pet owners, who are either very anxious, highly anxious. And I understand, like we've been saying, I mean, our pets are our emotions. We do get anxious about them. We do get anxious when there's something wrong with them. But people who are extremely anxious, and then also people who are extremely depressed, those kinds of people tend to really need for something to happen fast. They need an improvement fast. They need a fast change. And, we all read these stories online about these miracle cures, but that's kind of not the norm. For the most part, your body has to go through a process. There's repair, there's taking out the trash, there's assimilation of new nutrition, there's restoration of basic underlying functional systems like the gastrointestinal system, the detoxification systems need to come online. And so while I do expect my patients to see some improvement within a fairly short time, it's not immediate. So when I talk about my first Dutch Shepherd, Anton, who had diarrhea from the day that we got him, he was already a year old. He had been fed raw food for a month by the person who rescued him before I got him. And I continued to feed him raw food. But, you know, I tell people it was 10 months before he had a normal stool. And people are like, And some of it is you let your dog suffer for that long. But, you know, my criteria were he was never uncomfortable. He never had an accident in the house. He never woke up in the middle of the night and was like, oh, I need to poo right now. He had a gurgly tummy, but didn't seem bothered by it. And he loved to play ball and dig holes and do all sorts of dog things that made him happy. So he didn't seem to be suffering from it, even though he had this chronic system. But once it was fixed, it was good and fixed.
And it happened because you just allowed, that was a detoxification process.
Oh, yeah.
That was just, it was a long one because I'm sure there was a lot that he was
spent
detoxifying
the first year of his life in a meth house.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think too, like when people have those expectations or those kinds of inner drivers where they need for something to happen fast. And I get contacted by many people who are not necessarily really interested in holistic medicine, but they've tried everything else and nothing has worked. And they're at the point where they're like, if this dog scratches itself one more time, I will go insane. You might not be the best candidate for holistic medicine.
So this is a perfect opportunity for us to really, you know, we kind of have stumbled onto, I mean, it was always there, but we really kind of are created this little framework. And as we're moving forward with Wellspring and wanting to bring these ideas in, there is a process. There is a process to the holistic approach and it is, you know, you do need to switch your mindset to be able to emotionally do the process, because you do kind of have to separate the best you can emotions from the situation so that you can really, you know, analyze it in a way that you can be helpful to the animal. So what would be, you know, can you tell everybody, Dr. Levy, what is this process?
Well, what process are you thinking about? I mean, I was thinking like you have to be able to observe without judgment, which makes you feel a little bit cold and clinical. But our minds tend to find reasons for things. So what I get often is, oh, my dog had diarrhea, I'm going to stop the supplements. Or the dog vomited, he obviously can't tolerate the raw food, so I'm not going to feed him that. And we need to have a clinical, scientific approach. That doesn't prove anything to me because you know what? Dogs barf. Dogs have diarrhea sometimes. We do too. And I know because we do the same thing, right? We have diarrhea and we think, oh, I'll bet I know what it was. It was that Chinese food we had yesterday.
Sure.
Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Really what you would have to do is wait a month, eat the Chinese food again and see if it gives you diarrhea the second time. Then you have more data. So, but to some extent we need to just observe. And that I think is the challenging part. We expect slow, steady improvement, but we have a problem that we cannot ask our dogs how they are feeling. So we have to go by the signs and symptoms. And when we're looking for slow, steady improvement, what I do is with my own pets, I make myself make that decision right away first thing in the morning. So if I've given a homeopathic remedy or if I've introduced a new supplement, I look at my dogs the next morning and I ask myself, better, worse, same. And I make myself decide right then and there. And if things are the same or better, I make no changes. If they're worse, I got to decide, is this a homeopathic aggravation? Is this something that needs to be addressed? Do I need to do something? And then I do not let myself change my mind for the whole rest of the day. Wake up the next morning, same thing, better, worse, same. So that's how I've learned to deal with that second guessing that thought that, oh gosh, it's been a couple of hours, nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I would caution people too, like, beware of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
There's always somebody there who's happy to tell you that you've used the wrong remedy, you gave the wrong thing, you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies are always in a state of detoxification and repair. These processes are going on all the time,
Mm-hmm.
even when we're not aware of them. I remember some years ago, there was a doctor interviewed on NPR, and they had figured out what happens while you're asleep.
Oh.
You're detoxifying.
Oh.
Exactly. I was like,
Okay.
duh. What do you think was happening? And so it's like you have to calm the anxiety somewhat, and you have to lift yourself out of your depression a little bit in order to be able to observe
Mm-hmm.
without either getting hyper about it or getting too down about it.
Mm-hmm. So when we laid this out, just to try and simplify it, it was, the first step is patience, which you could also say calm, right? Patience and calm is to assess the situation and figure out what's my first step in
Mm-hmm.
dealing with this problem. The second thing is going to be observation, right? You're going to put something in play, and you have to just observe, which is where the patience part comes in. You need the patience first, because you're going to have to allow some patience while you're observing. And then the next thing is persistence. And so if you've put something in place and you're observing, and you maybe don't see the result you're looking for in the time frame that you feel comfortable with, then persistence in that, okay, I'm still not going to freak out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assess symptoms. Where are we at, and how serious is it? I mean, there is definitely a time, where people contact you for everything, and they're like, oh my gosh, what can I give for this? And you're like, nope, that's serious enough. Go to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
There are times, so we're not saying that all the time, but you've got your
Right.
patience, you've got your observation, where you really just need to see what I put in place, is it working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same or better? Is it not? And then persistence to try the next thing. Okay, that didn't work as well as I wanted it to. Let's be persistent.
Mm-hmm.
And let's reevaluate, and what else can we do? And then kind of the carry out or the follow through, where you finish out the process, and so maybe you start to get it under control, and then you decide, okay, I really need to add in this support. I'm going to finish out adding all of the support. Do I need to stop the remedy? Those types of things. So it's patience, it's observation, it's persistence, and then it's carry out.
Mm-hmm.
Is really and it's a very different way of approaching it.
Mm-hmm. And it depends on the nature of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because for many years now, I'm in a situation where it's homeopathy first, drugs only like a dead last.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at things from a different perspective. And I think Tim Dooley, in his book Beyond Flat Earth Medicine,
Mm-hmm.
does a really good job of presenting the homeopathic philosophy
Mm-hmm.
that
He does.
it's worth learning about, because it's not a matter of, instead of this drug, I'm going to give this remedy, and that will bring about natural healing.
Right.
There's more to it than that, because we look at how the patient changes, and a change, pretty much any change, can be positive for the most part. And so, for example, if you give a homeopathic remedy, and then to your dog who is anxious, for example, and then the dog develops an ear infection, that is positive. That is a detoxification.
Mm-hmm.
And so not every symptom is something bad and horrible.
Right.
Part of the problem is that conventional medicine splits us up into parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so your cardiologist will never talk to your nephrologist, who will never talk to your psychiatrist, who never speaks to your hematologist. They're all in different buildings. How are they going to talk to each other?
Mm-hmm.
And so the bottom line is that each one of them is prescribing based on different clinical signs or test results or whatever, and you will never be cured. Nobody's working for the whole you all at once and taking that into account. So Let me give 2 different examples. One is my dog Scout, who had a history of ear infections before I got him. I got him in March, a few years ago, can't remember when. Put him on raw food, put him on some supplements, because I knew he had this history of ear infections and would likely develop one in the future. And the ear infection is a detoxification mechanism in dogs. And so that had been suppressed every time, right? Drugs had been used to stop the ear infection. And so I had a few months between March and August where, just through observing him and just noticing things about his behavior, I had a good idea of which homeopathic remedy fit him the best. And then in August, he went through a detox. So I woke up one morning, he was crazy itchy, just itchy everywhere. And he was completely covered with scabs.
Oh, goodness.
Itchy scabs everywhere. And so I gave him 1 dose of the homeopathic remedy that I already knew fit him the best. And then I woke up the next morning and I asked myself, better, worse, same. And it was a little bit better. No action. So I did nothing else. Same thing, next morning, better, worse, same. And what ended up happening is it took about 3 weeks and the scabs all lifted off his skin and ended up kind of falling off here and there as his skin healed up underneath. And all I did was his basic supplements. I continued those and 1 dose of his homeopathic remedy. So that was kind of a lucky case where I had this time to observe him, and his personality traits were so clear. Like his homeopathic remedy was very obvious to me, so I knew what to give him. Another example that I think of is I used to have this mule who I went out and looked at him one day, and he had moon blindness. Moon blindness is also called anterior uveitis, where the eye becomes very inflamed and painful, and there's tears dripping down their faces. This is one where the conventional medical approach is antifungals, antibacterials, anti-inflammatories, which tells you that they have no idea what causes it. Just
everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah. But he was a Belgian mule, so he was 17 hands high.
Oh my gosh.
A hand is 4 inches, so 17 times 4 inches.
For a mule, that's huge.
Yes, he was quite large.
Wow.
And I am 2 feet tall. And so he stuck his head up in the air when I went out to look at him, and I thought to myself immediately, okay, I'm not going to be able to medicate your eye. So there's all sorts of, they have people putting some drops go in every 2 hours, and then the ointment goes in every 3 hours, and then this, that, and the other. And I looked at him with his head up in the air and thought, okay, that's not going to happen.
You would need a ladder.
Yeah. Well, and somebody would have to tie him down.
Hold him.
So I looked through my repertory. I read through my materia medica. I chose a homeopathic remedy and gave it to him. And by the end of the day, nothing had happened. So I found a different remedy and gave that to him. And then the next morning I looked at him and nothing had happened. And so, Dr. Pitcairn, when he taught the veterinary homeopathy course, he told us, if you practice homeopathy on animals, you will be accused of animal cruelty. Not that conventional medicine is always successful, but at least in conventional medicine, you always have the option of blaming the patient if they don't get better. You can always say, well, I did the correct drug, and this dog, this horse, they just didn't respond to it. And so it took me about 3 days of I would give a remedy in the morning, reevaluate in the evening, give a different remedy. And so I gave him several different remedies over the course of about 3 days. And I did feel despair. I did, because I felt self-recrimination, like, oh my gosh, like this inflammation is going on. I'm obviously not helping him. I didn't know anything about supplements at the time. Like I had zero information about that back then. And then finally, I sort of gave up, and I gave him homeopathic euphrasia, which is made from eyebright, the herb eyebright. And that was magic. That was one dose of homeopathic euphrasia, and the next time I looked at him, his eye was clear.
So yeah, we're just trying to kind of bring to light maybe something that is just kind of under the radar that maybe a lot of people don't even realize is happening in what they're carrying around, and then how it's affecting, the choices that you're making or how your dog is doing because of what we're bringing to the table. We can calm things down. We can be more objective. We can allow and trust the process of the systems to do healing. That's what they're built to do, and if we support them in the right way. So we hope that this has been enlightening and encouraging. We're here to just try and shed some light on this. We're not, condemning anybody. We've all done it. We've all been there. We've taken a long time to get us to where we are. And even now, if the situation is dire enough, or it's hard to stop. You got to stop yourself and be like, okay, I'm not going to be helpful if I'm emotional. So I gotta set it aside. And there's wonderful natural medicines. Homeopathy is a beautiful system of medicine. It has been proven. It's been around for over 200 years, right? Like there's a reason that we still have it. And so, I just encourage people to realize that there is definitely a different way to do things, and to, challenge you to think, what am I bringing to the table, and can I, do I need to stop and assess and kind of sever myself from some of this just insatiable, fear and anxiety? It doesn't do anybody any good to walk around with that. We've done this for a long time. I think that was another thing we brought up, is it's not, these aren't things we started doing a couple days ago. And we're like, so far they're working great. Right. This is, how many years, right? It's been a solid week. We're doing great so far. It's like, no, years and years and years. Yes. All your patients, all your dogs, my personal dogs, we produced over 50 puppies, had amazing success doing that. And there was a little bit, not a lot of problems did we have. With moms or puppies. We really were very fortunate in that, but I believe that it is because of the approach that was used. And honestly, because of the calm that you were able to build into me, even in those situations when mama's in labor or something like that, I was able to stay calm. And I remember when I was mentoring Nicole, the first litter we did, she's like freaking out about something, and she's just like waiting for me to like give her do we need to take her to the vet? Do we need to take it? And the whole time I'm just watching and waiting. And even though I might be a little concerned in the back of my head, I'm not going to project that into the situation. That is only going to worsen it for Daisy, right? And now, Nicole has been able to see that, and she's right there with us. And she is. So we hope this has been encouraging, and, really just challenge yourself to step outside of the box, start learning some new things. We're going to continue to put out, options and good resources to learn from. And, God willing, we'll have our own kind of, homeopathy kits and protocols. That's in the vision at some point. But in the meantime, know that healing can happen without conventional intervention. It's been doing it for thousands of years. So, hopefully you're encouraged by this, and we'll continue to bring some of these topics that maybe aren't spoken about a whole lot. I think one of the ideas that we really want to talk about coming up is holistic actually really more expensive? Is the holistic approach, because everybody talks about how expensive the food is, it's way more expensive, but is it really? I think we're going to talk about that. Yeah. So until next time, thanks for joining us on the Crunchy Carnivore podcast. See you then. Thank you so much for joining us. Our goal is always to encourage others to seek out the holistic approach by way of education and empowerment. You can check out our online resources at wellspringhaa.com. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, Wellspring Holistic Animal Academy, and you can also find us on Instagram at wellspring_HAA. We hope that this has been helpful and that you continue with us on your journey to holistic health for your pets. As always, we're here to be unapologetically all natural.